Hey Dramatics, welcome back. So I'm redoing my episode 1 recap of When the Phone Rings to flesh it out like I did in the preceding episodes for my Tell It Back series on this drama. I wanted to do a more concise, less rambling recap with my uhs and ums to a minimum, but I will still maintain lots of thoughts and information and no spoilers for mostly anything past this episode. But I'll leave my previous episode 1 recap for any revisitations. So anyway, this recap will contain spoilers. So watch on if you've already seen this episode or if you don't care. So we kick off this series with a man arriving at a place. We have no idea who he is, and for a while you don't see his face, the camera focusing either on the back of him or his wedding ring, and he's dressed for some kind of event. Then he gets to the front door and pushes it open, and we catch sight of our handsome male lead. He strolls in, scoping out the scene. There's a spiral staircase, and there's people everywhere, and they're struck by how good looking he is, how great he looks in his suit, or they're just straight up taking pictures of him. But he's not clocking for them. He's waiting for someone, and soon a woman dressed in black approaches him, and she looks a bit apprehensive to be there. And when she arrives at his side, he offers his arm to her, and there's a clamoring of voices, people speculating of who she is and if she is his wife. Paik Sa-eon tells her not to be nervous and that these people are looking at him, not her. He says, sure, they might be curious about you, but remember, there can't be any misunderstandings, interests, or rumors about our relationship tonight. And with that, they ascend the stairs, stepping in sync. But we're about to backtrack a bit to the day before. We're at a news station where a newscaster is giving a report about heavy rainfall across the nation and the approach of monsoon season. Also in the studio is the lady who showed up in the scene before, who's doing sign language off to the side. Soon, something goes awry where it looks like she's giving a middle finger on a loop on live television to the entire nation, and the director is freaking out about it. He tells Nayuri, the news anchor, to pass it over to the infield reporter. When that happens, the middle finger fiasco stops. Nayuri addresses the interpreter, putting up both middle fingers, saying, "This means a mountain, right? Or the high mountain?" Oh, she got jokes, but Nayuri assures the interpreter that she did great. Probably the first time the interpreter has worked at this news station, but I don't know that for sure. After covering her mic, Nayuri also divulges that even if Director Yoon is a superior, she hates how rude the man is, but is thrilled at how the interpreter showed him the peak, or the high mountain. But the newsroom is freaking out over the mishap. Director Yoon is trying to rectify this by putting out an apology message. Then another guy comes in with another message saying that there's about to be an emergency briefing in 5 minutes about an abduction incident. Nayuri gets word about the briefing and she's all happy about it because she's like, oh, a spokesperson briefing? Like a certain person is doing it? One of the people comes up to the interpreter and tells her, hey, we're about to go live. Do you mind Nope, the director cuts him off. No interpreter. She can go. So when she's about to leave, the emergency broadcast happens when Paik Sa-eon, who's the spokesperson for the president, comes up to the podium to deliver news. While he does, a couple of guys at the news studio is commenting on the spokesperson, how he has good vocalization, not to mention he's ranked first in preference, trust, and ratings. Nayuri isn't hearing any of that conversation, telling them to hush so she can hear Paik Sa-eon. But getting back to the current broadcast, Paik Sa-eon says that essentially the armed forces against them will off the hostages if ransom is not paid. So the position from the government is this: they're not paying even 1 won towards the ransom. The presidential office won't give way to terroristic threats, but will try to do their best to mobilize any national resources to help rescue the citizens. While everyone is still enamored with the broadcast, Hong Hee-joo isn't, giving him a blatant middle finger before leaving, like giving the screened version of Paik Sa-eon the middle finger. And so we already see there's a little bit of personal stuff going on between them. So Paik Sa-eon soldiers on with his press conference until its conclusion. Once the cameras and mics are off, he lets the reporters in the room know that as of this minute, a temporary media embargo will be implemented by the government. A reporter speaks up. Jang Hyuk-jin is like, hey, so the foreign media is already picking this up. If our media remains silent on this, then fake news and unreliable personal broadcasts will take over. Are you okay with that? Paik Sa-eon says, yeah, Aren't the reporters from our country's leading media outlets all here? If you don't mislead public opinion, the citizens won't believe what fake report is out there. The reporter is like, okay then, be honest. The situation is bad, isn't it? I've never seen you look so scared before. The thing about this is that Paik Sa-eon confesses that he is scared. And he's asking for all the journalists that are currently here in the room to come together as one and pray for the safe return of the citizens. And the government will do its best to make sure that not a single life is lost. So after the press conference, he delegates to his crew to check major headlines, personal broadcasts, new media, comments on community boards, and report public opinion back to him. He also asked for them to post live updates from the negotiation team. When they all return to their office, he puts down his constantly ringing phone from all the news organizations, and they are coming steadily in back to back. He does get a message from Nayuri, the news anchor from HBC. Her fangirling self sends a cheery message to him that she's rooting for him and to stay strong. Does he respond? No, he has other things to tend to. So the interpreter Hee-joo goes in as having either coffee or tea with two older women. One of them is her mother-in-law, who tells her flat out that she needs to quit her job. Election time is about to come, so she apparently wants Hee-joo to hang up this seemingly unnecessary job of hers and focus on supporting him, meaning her husband. Or as I see it, what she's really trying to say is that you really don't need to be seen at such an important time. And the other lady, Hee-joo's mother, doubles down, saying that she was going to ask Hee-joo to quit her job anyway. The mother-in-law says that she shouldn't have started working in the first place. So apparently last year, Hee-joo had had enough about being suffocated and wanted to start working outside the house. And so her husband let her do it. But her mother-in-law feels that her being out there could possibly expose her name and her face, which was something that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Like, we should prevent this from the jump. And she also is curious about if there's any improvement to Hee-joo's selective mutism. So now we're given a reason why she doesn't speak, that she's mute, but she wasn't born that way. But Hee-joo's mother is like, is there really any need for improvement though? And her mother-in-law was just like, you know what, on second hand, it's probably better that she keeps her mouth shut. And then she grabs her bag and she bounces after that. So Hee-joo's mother, who calls the leaving lady a bee, immediately sits down and berates her daughter about how all of this was her fault. And if she was going to steal someone else's man, she should have been doing a better job at it. Hee-joo apparently hasn't been able to win her husband's heart. And who does she take after? It certainly isn't from her mother, who is already giving off massive bee vibes, as well as the mother-in-law. Hee-joo is also the second daughter of the Chungwon Daily News' chairman, and not to mention the future president's daughter-in-law. So she has some big major ties here. And the way Hee-joo just looks in this scene just breaks your heart, and it shows that she is just clearly unhappy. And it seems like the only conversation she's ever had with her mother, let alone her mother-in-law, is where she's being admonished or fussed at, and it's about all she can take. So again, her life sucks. Hee-joo seems to be put upon by her husband or neglected by her husband, her mother-in-law, and her mother. But you know what matches her mood? The fact that it is dark and raining like hell. But she proceeds to drive home. While doing so, she changes her radio, which starts changing on its own. She turns it off, and then she gets a notification that she's going off route. Is her car starting to malfunction or something? She turns on her hazard lights and drives through traffic like she's about to pull over and get out to check it out. But as soon as she tries, her car is like, psych, and it keeps driving, although erratically. She presses on the brake, and it ain't stopping, and she's starting to accelerate and weave in and out of traffic. So we cut to someone who has laid out this neon green marker on the road, and then they look at their phone, seeing that they're watching her car on a map, waiting for her to come. Hee-joo comes across an intersection where there's a red light, and to miss oncoming traffic, the car turns left and stops. She tries to get out the car, but is trapped inside. So another big truck is coming towards her, big headlights and all. Meanwhile, we cut briefly to Paik Sa-eon and his crew. One of his people, Kang Young-woo, is commenting on how monitoring results show no signs of journalists breaking embargo agreements. Paik Sa-eon inquires about new media. Yep, they looked into that too. Looks like the netizens have uncovered his hidden background, that he has FBI training, and that he took a NYPD hostage negotiation course. So Paik Sa-eon is a bit of a negotiation expert, and in fact is wanted on the negotiation team. But getting back to the root of what was originally asked, there doesn't seem to be any speculative articles or malicious reports. Paik Sa-eon is like, that's not so. There's one right here. And he plops down a tablet before he leaves. So what was on it? Article from our reporter from HBC posting and editing terrible pictures of Paik Sa-eon. But speaking of Paik Sa-eon, the man can't even sit down in his office before his phone is ringing again. And seriously, the name of the drama rings true because this man is constantly on the phone. But because of all the activity today, his phone is now at 3%. And of course, like earlier, I guess like when he first got into this office, I think it was at 88. So it has gone down a lot in the last couple of hours. But oh yeah, let's get back to the part where Hee-joo was about to get hit by a truck. Yeah, that part. Anything about this, she doesn't really. The truck swerves around her so she's safe, at least until she looks up and she sees a stranger dressed in black and a black mask and hat, standing there staring at her. And the audience, we see he has two-tone eyes, one light brown, one dark brown. Not ominous or creepy at all. But target acquired, this guy comes and gets into the back seat of Hee-joo's car. So at Paik Sa-eon's office, he gets handed this file by Park Tae-jae to go over. In the meanwhile, his phone is at 1%, and seriously, why hasn't he charged it? But anyway, he gets a call from a 406 number, which Park Tae-jae calls Paik Sa-eon's attention to. Since it's a number from abroad, it could be important. Paik Sa-eon answers it, and after prompting, the person on the other side doesn't speak. Paik Sa-eon is like, alright, I'll hang up if you don't say anything. Then the person finally speaks. His name. Paik Sa-eon is like, who are you? This isn't a domestic number. Who are you affiliated with? What this dude says, I'm gonna off your wife. And end of call part 1. Why? Because his phone freaking died. So, little side note, my husband is a stickler when it comes to things losing power, and he hates when no one in dramas ever charges their phone. And he has a valid point, especially with this. It's not like Paik Sa-eon doesn't have a charger within arm's length. He does. But he deliberately ignores that his phone's battery is in the single digits, especially with how important this dude is. Come on. But we also know the reason why this happened is because of plot. Drama, tension, suspense, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he gets the brilliant idea to finally charge his phone and ask Park Tae-jae to get back to work. While his phone charges though, he does call his mother. He asks her if she saw her today, meaning his wife, and he asks when did she leave. And it's a one-sided conversation that we don't hear, but his mother alludes to the fact that she left his wife with her mother. So he in turn calls his mother-in-law, who confirms that she brought Hee-joo home for dinner and will send her along when she's done, which is a lie and a half. The witch wouldn't even let Hee-joo finish her beverage earlier, let alone feed her dinner. And of course, we as the audience already know where Hee-joo is. But despite being told his wife was with her mother, he does his due diligence, coming out of his office and asks Kang Young-woo to trace this foreign number, which Hamdu can't even get down, but Park Tae-jae does and runs with it. Paik Sa-eon goes back into his office where he returns to yet another call, but this one from the mysterious number. First thing he says when he picks up, is she unalived? No answer. Then he's like, you said you'd off her, did you? In fact, do you even know who my wife is? But you know what? I'm far too busy to be dealing with prank calls today. The caller tells Paik Sa-eon to not hang up. He has a knife at his wife's throat at the moment, and he'll off her for real. And Paik Sa-eon's like, okay, go ahead. Instead of talking about it, do it. The kidnapper's like, well, hold on a minute. We haven't talked about money yet. How much are you willing to pay? And Paik Sa-eon counters with, pay? Oh, you're funny. You can sit here and demand as much as you want, but what's not going to happen is me paying any kind of ransom. So stop playing on my phone. Don't call again. Click. End of call part 2. Well, Paik Sa-eon doesn't realize that on the other side of this phone call, his very terrified wife has the phone up to her ear while she's driving, and he is speaking aloud on speakerphone, pretty much dismissing her life away. And the kidnapper isn't too pleased. He holds the knife up to her neck, but then switches it out to strangle her instead. While she's weaving around the rope, he's looking into her face, saying how much he loves the expression she has the most, the expression of utmost terror. Then after a moment, he lets go, telling her to keep her eyes on the road, like you do after you get choked out. And he also says, do you get it now? This isn't a joke, yet your husband thinks it is. And what did he mean earlier about if I knew who his wife was? It is you, isn't it? And Hee-joo shakes her head. After grabbing a hold of her head, he wonders, wait, is this dude a polygamist? He got another wife? Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's none of my business. But the wife of Paik Sa-eon cares about the most better be you. He's being creepy and invading her personal space and up there touching her and trying to console her after you just choked her out 30 seconds ago. And he switches so quickly on a dime, so he's very volatile and she's trying not to rock the boat. But he's just like, well, it's time to call your husband back again. So this kidnapper calls again and Paik Sa-eon isn't picking up. The kidnapper gets agitated and starts to stabby the back of Hee-joo's headrest. But one misplaced jab ends up cutting her neck. After that, he chills out, saying all is good and calm. Then he's like, hey sis, so do you know what kind of phone this is? This phone can only call Paik Sa-eon, and the voice modulation is also automatic. It also has a VPN network, which means it can't be traced for 10 minutes. Also, regarding her car, he's already tampered with it ahead of time. That's how he was able to control it. So this guy is just bombarding his secrets out here. And then he's also flipping on a dime, saying how he's frustrated that Paik Sa-eon isn't picking up his calls and yells until the phone does pick up. But it's not the man he's wanting to talk to. Kang Young-woo has picked it up and it's like, my bad, I'll go get him. And Paik Sa-eon fusses at Kang Young-woo about how he warned him not to pick up the call before taking it. But he's back on the phone. He says, look, scumbag, didn't I tell you not to call me again? And the kidnapper is like, but I meant what I said. I'm going to off your wife. And Paik Sa-eon's like, cool, hurry up and do it. Call me when she's been bodied. Click. End of call part 3. And so the kidnapper is stunned at what was just said. But our poor Hee-joo is even more so. It sends the kidnapper into a rage and her into a tailspin. She's replaying that in her head of what her husband just said, that he had such little regard for her life. So as Paik Sa-eon goes to resolve the matter with the hostage negotiation, the kidnapper calls again and Hee-joo floors it and she speeds because F it. What all does she have to live for now? But the kidnapper can't stop it as they go flying over a speed bump and the car spins out. But it propels the car forward and the kidnapper gets knocked out. The only good news we have out of all of this is that the hostages have been released through negotiations. And technically at the same time, I think what's also interesting is that Hee-joo has also been released from her own hostage negotiation regarding the kidnapper. So I kind of thought that was a pretty interesting parallel at that moment. But unfortunately for her, she's not quite liberated from this miserable life that she's had to live. So yeah, these series of events have been brutal. And I'm sure there's those of you who are new to this drama that a lot of your first response with Paik Sa-eon was like, yeah, forget this dude 9 ways to Sunday. And on this temperament, I'd agree. But put a pin in this. Let's get a little further before I dig into what's really at play here. So speaking of which, Paik Sa-eon is scrolling on his phone in his car when he gets a knock on his window from his reporter friend. He puts his phone up to Paik Sa-eon's face, wanting to get an exclusive interview with him, which Paik Sa-eon immediately rolls up his window, trapping the reporter's arm in. After he's free, the reporter's like, why are you heading out early? It's not even 9 o'clock yet. Do you want to go and grab a drink? So Paik Sa-eon apparently works a lot of hours. And Paik Sa-eon is also like, what, are you stalking me on when I clock out? Plus, you need to stick to reporting the truth about the news, not distort it, because remember, this is the same guy who posted that mocking report on Paik Sa-eon, which Paik Sa-eon didn't appreciate. So as soon as Paik Sa-eon pulls out of his space, he gets a little further into the parking lot. Then he starts reversing it and starts speeding it back where he almost hits the reporter. The reporter was still standing there. Then Paik Sa-eon's like, I have a favor I have to ask. The next scene though, we see Paik Sa-eon driving like a straight up a-hole. And I mean, the guy turns right at a red light without pausing in front of oncoming traffic. So the reporter is up here grabbing to the oh my crap handles as Paik Sa-eon is weaving in and out of traffic. The reporter's like, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. Yes, he is, for a reason. But Jung Hyuk Jin is like, look, my bad about the article. Won't do it again. Thing about it is, Park Sun's mind isn't even on that. He asks his friend to trace the 406 number as quickly as possible. Even though he believes it's a phishing scam, he still has a bad feeling about it. He never assumed his number would be safe from scammers, but this call had a voice modulator on it, so this guy's pulling out all the stops. So it seems like it might be real. He can't shake this one from his mind. Then he pulls off to the side of the road once the reporter friend recites the number, to note that he got it. So Park Sun pulls off to the side of the road, just like, all right, all done, get out. And then Park Sun still proceeds to drive like a bat out of Hades. And his friend is up there wondering why Park Sun is in such a hurry. Well, we see that Hong Hee-joo has gotten home. We don't know by how and what circumstances or by what means, but she is currently at home. She's taking a shower to wash off the effects of the day and intends to cover all the cuts and bruises she received going along her hairline and, of course, the side of her neck where she got cut, and she band-aids that. And as soon as her rice cooker is done, she's getting rice out when she hears the door open. And the look on her face is so telling on what she thinks of him when he arrives home. But she keeps her back to him. And she is so angry, which we get. Now, while she's up there serving herself some rice, he sits down at the dining room table and he says, "You're alive." No stuffing, Sherlock, but continues. "I received a ridiculous call today. Someone's saying that they'll off you, but you're alive and well." Alive? Yes. Well, that's pushing it. And I'm surprised she didn't throw the rice cooker at him. But he surveys the table. And he's like, "What's with all the food? Didn't you eat with your mom?" No, she didn't get the chance to because her mom's a lying you-know-what. Of course, she doesn't answer because she's mad at him. And like we said, she has every right to be. Then he gets a call from Park Tae-jae who says that he can't trace the call because the cell phone isn't using any of the cell towers. So he gets a text from his reporter friend at the same time, and he's like, "Hey, this phone number is actually from the States, and it looks like it's a virtual one." So Park Sun tells Park Tae-jae is that the reason why this call can't be traced is because it's a virtual number. And so it seems that they will have to track it in real time. So Park Sun will have to take the call again. And Park Tae-jae is like, "Sorry, this is the only way." And that the call has to last over 10 minutes in order for them to pinpoint. And that with this, they will need to try and identify him. And Park Sun's like, I know it's a man. I'm sure of it. And he's already gotten up from the table by this time, but Hong Hee-joo had been listening to his conversation. So when she goes to the table, she's angrily eating her food, and it seems like she's also kind of thinking a little bit. And I love also that she's not crying and carrying on still. She had her moment still, I guess, with the kidnapper, but now she's pulled herself together and now she is seething with rage. And so she looks like she got some verve and resilience. Perhaps because she's had to be that way all her life. The daylight today was just another notch in the life sucks bedpost. In his office, Park Sun is like, dude made the threatening call at the perfect time. It was clear that he was trying to shake him up during a national emergency. Park Tae-jae agrees. There's plenty of people that would love to see him fail. But is your wife okay though? And Park Sun says that she is. But just in case, I want her to be under protection, but still keep it on the low that she's my wife. And he asked Park Tae-jae for the number to the team he knows, where Park Sun will call them personally. Also, there's an event at the British Embassy tomorrow. You know, that party that Park Sun arrived at the beginning of this episode. But he asked Park Tae-jae, "Didn't you say we need a sign language interpreter? And did Park Tae-jae ever find one?" Well, Park Sun comes out of the office and asks Hong Hee-joo to come and sit. She's washing dishes, and you can tell that hearing him talk just grates on her nerves, and she refuses to come and acquiesce to that. Good girl. He comes up to her and turns off the faucet. He tells her about the event at the British Embassy and he'll send someone to pick her up by 5. She looks at him, her face questioning. He tells her that the ambassador's wife is deaf and that they'll need a sign language interpreter. It's not like a couple's event or anything, so don't get the wrong idea. She would do any kind of couple event with him right now. Are you kidding me? To make Hong Hee-joo's night even worse, her mom decides to call her, which she ignores. Her mom texts her, "Where are you? Are you at home? Why won't you pick up? Park Sun was looking for you earlier." And Hong Hee-joo was like, "Why was he?" Her mother, "Don't know. He asked me if I was with you, but I said I sent you home after dinner, so make sure to tell him that when he gets home." In other words, reinforce my lie that I took you home for dinner when I really didn't. That has to make me look good. I'm sorry, my bias for her mom only shows, I know this is still episode 1 recap, but the woman makes my eyes get stuck in the back of my head. I roll them so hard regarding her. I do not like her. I'll just tell you that up front, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of y'all are getting the vibes of not liking her either. So her mom calls again, and Hee-joo really doesn't want to pick up, but she does. Only for what? For her mother to talk to her about there being just 1 month left until the presidential campaign kicks off. Hee-joo probably doesn't need to show herself, but just in case, see the dermatologist and plastic surgeon starting tomorrow. Also, when did you stop going to the clinic? No wonder you haven't gotten pregnant. I'll send the medicine tomorrow, so be ready to get in shape, and Hee-joo has had enough of her and everyone tonight. She puts her phone underneath her pillow to muffle the complaining cow, and she takes a look at her calendar, and she circles a date in July. I believe it's July 2nd. And it's a month to go before the campaign start date. And we get a flashback, and this flashes back to 3 years prior, and Hee-joo is currently sitting in her wedding best, and she is so beautiful as she's waiting on who? Well, soon her groom shows up, donned in the tux and an envelope in hand. What's the first thing he says? That she's beautiful? Can't wait to marry her? No, he demands for her to take it off. It doesn't belong to you. You're just a stand-in. Take it off. And she's up here blinking at him. Paik Sa-eon says that the wedding will be held in private and that she'll never have to pretend to be his wife in front of others again. So with Hee-joo, fine. She tosses her bouquet of flowers aside. She gets up to remove her veil, gloves, and earrings. Then when she attempts to unfasten her dress, he takes off his jacket and drapes it over her shoulders. Then he asks if she was going to strip naked. Sir, you told her to take off everything. Why even ask that? And I still to this day have no idea why he said that. I guess essentially shock value for the drama, I guess. So he hands her the envelope. What is it? Their wedding vows. But y'all, these aren't coming from the heart or exchange of their love. No, these vows are a contract. And Paik Sa-eon is like, you don't have to read the fine print, but just remember this. Number 1, the bride cannot initiate divorce. Number 2, especially during the election period. Number 3, you will not publicly disclose your name or face as my wife. Any violation of this will result in a penalty of 2 billion won. Converted to US dollars, that is $1,363,800. And oh goodness, that is a steep penalty. But she's like, okay, whatever. She signs next to his name. Now her fate is sealed. He asks her to get up, which she refuses. He calls her stubborn before he bends down on one knee, and upon her finger he places a beautiful solitaire. But even with this gesture of him getting on his knee and giving this ring to her like he's proposing his love and devotion to her, what's being proposed is actually the opposite of that. And he tells her to forget the illusion that we're married. You were sent as a hostage to me. So in our sort of current present day, Hee-joo is scrolling on her phone, and online there's speculation on who Paik Sa-eon is married to, how his wedding turned private all of a sudden to hide the bride from public, which is exactly what happened. No one has any knowledge outside the family who he's married to, hence tying back to the whole mess regarding the car, the kidnapper, Hee-joo, and Paik Sa-eon a few scenes ago. Okay, now I'm going to address all of this, these last few scenes. And it's not really a full-fledged defense of Paik Sa-eon's behavior towards Hee-joo. Let me say that out the gate, because apparently the way he acts with her in private, especially at that wedding scene, you can see that she was jonesing to get out to work. Especially when she gets talked down to by her mother, dismissed by her mother-in-law, and essentially not deemed worthy to live by her husband. She's trapped in a hard place with hard limits already against her. She's limited in what she can do because she's mute and powerless by means of financial ability to get out of the marriage. And it makes you wonder if the penalty was done deliberately to keep her imprisoned here and attached to someone who doesn't seem to give a damn about her. But the thing about it is, Paik Sa-eon cares about her way more than he's letting it show in this episode. And even before I saw future episodes, the signs were still here in episode 1. Not only can he talk a good game and negotiate, Paik Sa-eon is also a man of action when it comes to his love language, even if his face and words are saying something else regarding her. And I know, some of y'all are like, not a chance. He's rude, hostile, and downright cold. Yes, yes, and yes. And like I said, I'm not all the way defending him, but I understand where he's at, in particular with the whole kidnapper affair. Follow me on this one. at this point in the drama, we already have more context regarding the whole scope of how things are. Paik Sa-eon married a woman no one knows about, at least the public at large. So when the kidnapper says that he has his wife, he doesn't say her name at all. And Hee-joo can't verify because she's what? Mute. So this random number, that's foreign by the way, calls him up to say, hey my guy, I got your wife and I'm going to off her if you don't pay up. And there's no sign of life that this dude even has her, which causes Paik Sa-eon to not fully believe it. And it looks like he was starting to disbelieve that this was the real deal when the kidnapper hesitated on offing Hee-joo and wanted to talk money instead. And Paik Sa-eon scoffs at this because it seemed like this is a prank call that's trying to shake him down for funds, when Paik Sa-eon doesn't have any proof that his wife is in danger at this point. If the kidnapper had sent him a picture of Hee-joo to Paik Sa-eon, I believe there would have been a substantial difference on how Paik Sa-eon had acted during the scene. Plus, Hee-joo's mother lied to him, saying that Hee-joo was with her for dinner. That bolstered him to act callous to the situation because he genuinely thought she was safely with her mother when that was far from the case. This episode highlights up front Paik Sa-eon's fantastic negotiation skills. It was like this throughout the whole hostage thing, and it translated to the ordeal with the kidnapper where he remained firm against him, but still played it safe by having a couple of people try and trace the number and arranging security detail for Hee-joo. But even with his great negotiation skills, Paik Sa-eon also has a flaw. Well, a few. But here he's cocky that his wife was shielded from any kind of knowledge that anyone knew who she was. Therefore, she was protected. So to him, he was comfortable that she was safe from threats and enemies when in truth, she wasn't. So where was this show of feelings of his? Why, on the drive home, of course. My guy drove like a madman. Why? To get home to see if his wife was okay. He left earlier than usual. He cut off cars, running lights, swerving around cars to see if Hee-joo was there. And even with him being all stone-faced, he's not all the way calm, cool, and collected. When he sees her at home, you can see him sigh in relief. And just so you know, Paik Sa-eon is a scoffer and a sire throughout this entire series. But this one is for her. But as soon as he looks his fill of her, his mask slips back on. What he's wearing this mask for will be discussed in future episodes down the line when you find out more about the man he is. Also, a brief thing here, what already signals his feelings to me is the wedding ring. Not all married people in this drama sports one, but he does. I think that's a nod to where his feelings lie. It shows his devotion to her in solidarity, if not in overall actions and words. And even though he gave Hee-joo a ring on their wedding day, she doesn't wear hers. And why should she? From the get-go at their wedding, he came at her sideways, which shut her down. And he seems to have been cold to her ever since. And why pretend to be married to someone that you can't even publicly or privately acknowledge as your own? So at work the next day, Hee-joo's boss strolls along until she hears some crude language. She goes to the studio to where Hee-joo is watching a violent film or series. She's venting her frustration for sure. Her boss is like, what are you doing? Hee-joo, just practicing. Her boss is like, oh, what kind of intense practice is this? Are you interpreting for the police? Or did a loan shark ask for an interpreter? Is it dead or deaf? Hee-joo shakes her head, but it still perplexes her boss because she's never seen Hee-joo do this before. So she tells her just to stick to what she normally does, which is to watch videos on Paik Sa-eon. Oh, really? And it makes you question, was her watching these videos was merely for work, or did she choose to do the videos on him? Like, was this a deliberate choice to do all of that because of some other feelings she has for him? But her boss mentions that there's been a lot more briefings of him lately. Do you want me to bring you some? And Hee-joo's like, nah, I'm good. And the boss is a little suspicious, like, why not? And Hee-joo says, like, I'm done with Paik Sa-eon's videos. And probably because if she sees him on screen, she will punch it. So with that, we're back at the initial scene at the first part of the episode. Paik Sa-eon arriving at the event, but what we don't see in the first go-around, he stops before heading inside to check his phone for what? Either a message from her or her detail to let him know that they're on their way. But as soon as he waits, her security comes up to him and apologizes for being late before Hee-joo comes up to him. So when she takes his arm, they ascend the spiral staircase. Then they wait a little bit in the line to talk to the ambassador and his wife. Park-sun shakes the ambassador's hand, wishing him in English a very happy birthday. The ambassador mentions how Park-sun has been incredibly busy for the last few days, but regardless, he makes good use of his time. He also introduces his wife, Rachel, who Park-sun addresses where Hong Hee-joo interprets. Miss Rachel signs back that I didn't know that the spokesperson's wife could sign. Well, she can, but this wife ain't claiming that husband. Hong Hee-joo tells her that they're not married and that she's just an interpreter. There's no personal relationship between them, which is true on so many levels. The ambassador says, "So she's not your wife?" Park-sun apologizes and says he doesn't understand sign language, but wonders if that's what the ladies were talking about. The ambassador had assumed that they were married, but now sees that he was mistaken. But no, you're not, my guys, so don't apologize for that. So Park-sun, now speaking in Korean, starts to be frank, says that his wife has a disability too, which gives Hong Hee-joo pause. And there's an interpreter to translate what he says to the ambassador. So the ambassador says he doesn't believe he's ever seen Park-sun's wife at an official event. Why doesn't she accompany him? Truth bomb, because his wife is his weakness. Yes, he tells this to the British ambassador, but not to the woman he's been married to for 3 years. Oh, okay. And so the ambassador's like, well, is it because of her disability? And Park-sun explains that he faces a lot of attacks on all sides from his job. So essentially, from the government standpoint, he's the official scapegoat. So with that, he doesn't want to expose his wife to these attacks. And now Hong Hee-joo is already miffed at him saying this, because why are you saying this now? And why are you saying this to practically a complete stranger in comparison to me? I've been married to you for 3 years and I'm staying right beside you. You didn't say this to my face. Yeah, I'll be miffed too. So anyway, Park Do-jae notifies him via text that all is on standby in case the caller wants to try something tonight. But you know who's trying to get turned up? Hong Hee-joo. With a bottle of wine, she's tipping the glass back. But Park-sun hijacks that, asking if she was trying to get drunk or is she already. She was working on the former, but he's unfortunately blocking the latter. She text messages him, "Look, I'll go home if I'm already done here." And he says she can't. When she tries to respond, he pushes her phone down and he tells her to stand quietly next to him. Is that so hard? With you, yes. Just when he's about to leave the table, she holds him back and proceeds to tell him off in sign language. And what she says is so beautifully poetic. So here it is. She says, "Do you think I can't hear just because I can't speak? Do you think I can't feel emotions? You don't want to expose me to indiscriminate attacks? Then why am I hurt and torn apart already? Did you say I was your weakness? A weakness is a wound that's prone to infection. When someone touches it, you flinch, tremble, and desperately defend it. That's a weakness. You didn't act like that yesterday, you despicable jerk." Of course, while she's going off, he has no idea what she's saying, asking if she was cursing at him. She doesn't respond but grabs her purse and leaves. But her parting shot, "I might not be the wife you were talking about." Oh, that's a loaded statement, but one to unpack at the end of this recap. So Hong Hee-joo is a bit woozy from the 2 swallows of wine she got in. So she ducks into a bathroom to recover. But who takes over wine drinking? Park-sun does. And I saw people comment online how they believe he did an indirect kiss, drinking from the same side of the glass that she did. He did not, because trust me, I did look. The lipstick stain is away from him, so I believe with that, when he is going to kiss her, it's going to be the real deal. He's reserving those real kisses for down the line. With that, he does soon get a call at 10 o'clock on the dot from the kidnapper, from the 406 number. So he picks up, and when the kidnapper doesn't speak for a while, he's like, "I'll go first. My wife is safe. Did you fail the offer? Why aren't you talking? You were more talkative yesterday. But I didn't have time to listen to your rambling. Then let's hear your plan on how you're going to hurt her in the future. I got plenty of free time today." Because if you remember, Park-sun is trying to pad time so that this call can go over 10 minutes so that Park Do-jae and team can trace the call. At last, the kidnapper speaks, saying, "True. I guess there's not much to do at a party." Uh-oh. "I'm glad you're having a good time. You're good at playing the love-struck fool." And all cockiness is now gone from Park-sun, and he is looking around to see if he can locate the person calling him. The kidnapper says, "Are you surprised by how close I am? Yeah, I've been watching you the whole time, but you didn't notice." And Park-sun's, a little panicking, is like, "Stop bluffing. How can someone like you get in here when you need an invitation?" The kidnapper says, "You've hardly eaten a thing. Eat something. The bruschetta with the truffle on top was really good." And Paik Sa-eon looks down at the table, and sure enough, there it is. So this dude is at the party. And so Paik Sa-eon is searching all over the guests, and it's putting him on high alert. And he asked the kidnapper who he was. The kidnapper says, "Are you curious about me right now?" And Paik Sa-eon is like, "Stop laughing and answer me. Who are you? How did you get here?" The kidnapper says, "Yeah, I'll answer the question you asked earlier. You asked me how I plan on hurting your wife." And that really has Paik Sa-eon rattled. And he is looking towards the door where Hee-joo had left through. And he says, "Don't mess around. How dare you come here?" And the kidnapper envisions how flustered Paik Sa-eon looks, and he should have done this yesterday. And he looks up and he locks onto someone on the balcony, looking down over the scene on the phone. So Paik Sa-eon books it up the stairs, and he follows the man into a bathroom where he's in a stall, but the man is talking to a woman. The kidnapper is like, "What was that? You're way off base. You said I couldn't possibly be here." And Paik Sa-eon is like, "A loser like you is probably hiding and snickering in your room. Do you really think someone like you can do anything to my wife?" By the way, all the while he's saying this, he's searching the embassy from top to bottom. And he continues, "If you wanted to threaten me, you chose the wrong hostage. My wife? Who's my wife? Have you even seen her?" The kidnapper's like, "Oh yeah, the world has no idea who she is, but I do. Hee-joo isn't your real wife." And hearing that stops Paik Sa-eon in his tracks. And so the kidnapper continues on with, "The real person you were supposed to have married was the daughter of the chairman of Chungwon Daily News, Hong-ina. But she ran away before the wedding, and I heard no one knows where she is. So how could you marry the sister? Then again, Chungwon Daily News and your family are in an inseparable symbiotic relationship. You had to go through with the marriage, so you married her sister as a hostage. Either way, I bet people love that, right? That Paik Sa-eon, the clean and great spokesperson, rides both sisters like an elevator, off and on whenever he wants." So it's now Paik Sa-eon's turn to be quiet, which the kidnapper notices. And the kidnapper's like, "Don't you want to know how I know this great secret that nobody else does?" And Paik Sa-eon asks, what does the kidnapper want? The demand? Get rid of Hee-joo and get back with your real fiance. You don't need Hee-joo in your life anyway, do you? And during these demands, the camera shows bits and pieces of who the caller is. And it's not the kidnapper, but Hee-joo. So we get a flashback to the scene where Paik Sa-eon said that stupid line about calling back when his wife has been bodied, right? So now for the part we didn't get to see, which is Hee-joo pulling off to the side of the road. Then we see her speak out, saying, "That a-hole." The kidnapper is so shocked and stunned that she can talk. She demands that the kidnapper calls him back. And she is in hell no mode, saying that she has something to say to him. And so they're calling him back right now. And she snatches the phone from the kidnapper and dials the number for tossing it back to him, who is thrilled by the change in events. He is like tickled pink about it. And so they continue to drive, and then she starts flooring it and getting more erratic with each ring of the phone and her husband not picking up, which she's insisting and saying, "Pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up." But he's not, because we already know in that previous scene, he's already gone to deal with the whole hostage thing, so he's away from his desk. And so with that, they go flying over the speed bump and knocking out the whole kidnapper. And so she gets out of the car, but when she looks back, not only is the kidnapper knocked out, but she spots the modded phone on her floorboard, which she takes. But of course, at this rate, we have no idea what she did with the kidnapper. We don't know how she got back home. We don't know. And we won't know, honestly, at the end of this episode either. So back to present day, she says, "Do you understand? Unless you want your personal life to ruin your father's election, return things to what they were. If you don't, I'll expose the secrets of your marriage." And she glances down, and she's already keeping time on her own phone about how many minutes she has left, which is about 2.5. Because remember, the call can't go over 10 minutes. So she already knows she needs to wrap this up. So she tells Paik Sa-eon that he has until tomorrow to decide, or they can sell this for 2 billion won, which you remember is the amount she needs in case she breaks any of the vows of initiating divorce and whatnot. That would be the perfect amount she can get to pay off the penalty. And so now Paik Sa-eon cuts in with like, are you done? So apparently punks like you never change your repertoire. If you want to threaten me, do your homework first. Hundreds of reporters are eager to speak to me at any cost, so turning a lame scandal into fake news is easy for me. And I can get rid of a pathetic blackmailer with my eyes shut. So, why did you think I'd accept a presumptuous demand to abandon Hee-joo? Why are you dragging my person into this? And Hee-joo is in disbelief over that my person thing. And she's like, don't be ridiculous. Do you know what happened to your precious person yesterday? She was almost unalived. I kidnapped her, choked her, and grabbed her by the hair. And I had a knife to her to do it. Do you get it? She was terrified. And Paik Sa-eon prompts the kidnapper to continue. And Hee-joo says that she was about to be bodied and she couldn't even beg for her life because, you know, the mute thing. So yeah, you almost lost her yesterday. Then we hear a thud and Paik Sa-eon's shaky breath. And he says, I've never been more curious about a man before. And then the camera cuts to him and we see that he hit a wall with his right hand. And there be blood. It's just oozing from his knuckles. And Paik Sa-eon says, forget about getting arrested for 06. I promise I'm going to catch you. And Hee-joo gets a timer notification and she hangs up. And now she's panicking if he fell for it or not. And it seems like he has. And with a freeze frame on them, it's the end of episode 1. So what a great start to a series. I covered a bit of what went down from the first half, but here's the thing for the second part covering the party. So there's a triple reason why Paik Sa-eon asked Hee-joo to attend with him. 1, the obvious. He brought an interpreter out of goodwill for the ambassador and his wife. 2, protection. He's got a detail on her now, and so her being there, he can keep his eyes on her. 3, he simply wanted her there. Sure, he asked Park Jae if he had found an interpreter, and honestly, he could have found anyone else to do this. I mean, she was really only used for like a couple minutes. And if we're being serious, she really didn't need to be there. I'm sure the ambassador can sign for his wife, and honestly, she should have had also an interpreter there already assigned to her, especially if there was like a lot more Korean dignitaries and government officials that were there at the party. And so for sure, this seems a bit unnecessary, but for the sake of this drama and what happened, it's a way to get her in public with him. Because if you remember the third part of their quote-unquote wedding vows, that it can't be publicly known that she's his wife, and that this is a way for him to spend time with her in public to where it can camouflage the stipulations that was set forth about her not being able to. He practically hired her for a job, so that is the reason why she's out in public with him. But, you know, with him, I believe is also, I want to spend time with my wife, but this is a way for me to do that without raising suspicion, especially with Hee-joo not really putting any focus or any lovey-dovey feelings or anything out there into the universe that would flag any of his enemies to come after her for some reason. So this is a way for him to show off his wife without the public knowing who she truly is. And there's also another reason too that I can't disclose because it's a bit spoilery for future episodes, and I generally like to contain spoilers for just the current episode that I'm watching on down to the past ones. But upon rewatching this episode, he does say a line in here that will resurface in later episodes. I will give you that. I'll also will display the verbiage of it. Maybe you can hunt it down and see what I'm talking about when you get to those episodes. Also, as soon as the initial threat of the kidnapper being at the party surfaced, what does Paik Sa-eon do? Especially when the kidnapper threatens his wife, he searches all over the embassy, not only for the kidnapper, but also for his wife. And I think it's interesting that when Hee-joo drops knowledge of his marriage secret, he was not far from where she was in the bathroom. Like, he was on the same floor as her. So it makes me wonder if she had ducked into an unused room and she didn't drop that bomb until moments later, he might have come across her being on the phone earlier. That's just how close it could have been for her to be discovered so early. But he definitely showed his anger when Hong Hee-joo shared the harrowing details of her ordeal, to where he was overcome with emotions to the point he was punching the wall and threatening to run this kidnapper to ground. Paik Sa-eon shows his feelings regarding Hong Hee-joo to everyone else but her directly. After he got home after driving erratically, and as soon as he saw her, he immediately hid his panic. He disclosed that his wife is his weakness to the ambassador, and yet said wife is standing beside him and thinks it's all a lie. Or he's also referring to somebody else, possibly the sister he didn't marry because she ran off. And also telling the kidnapper that Hong Hee-joo is his person and that he'll never give her up. Y'all, this gave me such Wayne So feelings from Moon Lover Scarlet Heart Rio. I just loved it. It was a nice nod for that. But it goes to show that Paik Sa-eon is the epitome of ice cold control, but he loses his ever-loving mind if there's any possibility of Hong Hee-joo being in danger. That's when he goes off the rails regarding her. So his love for her is apparent, if not under wraps, for whatever reason. And in this episode, it's a slight unravel of what will occur in future episodes. So that is all I will disclose about this episode. Thank you for letting me do this new recap. Let me know if you like the original one better, if you like this one. But both are still there for your listening pleasure if you wish to go to either one of them. But please like and subscribe. Stay a while and let me know what you've thought of episode 1 and what your impression of it is. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.